Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 26th day of July in the year of our Lord 2024. I will be talking about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump once again, but also the continuing saga surrounding it, including the resignation of the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, the withdrawal of Joe Biden from the presidential campaign, but especially what it all says about America today. I'm going to assume that you know the difference between democracy and republic, and that the United States Constitution makes this nation a republic. Just to reiterate something you already know, democracy is government by the will of the majority, but republic is government by the elected representatives of the people, who in turn are recognized as having individual rights. That's the key, individual rights. In a republic, the majority does not rule when the majority's decision interferes with the protected rights of individual Americans. My argument is that a republic is what the founders bequeathed to us in the Constitution, but today our system of government has evolved until we no longer have a republic or a democracy, but instead we are ruled by an oligarchy. That word comes from an ancient Greek word meaning ruled by a few. Aristotle explained it as not only ruled by a few, but ruled by the worst few, those who usually take power by force or subterfuge. Ruled by a few, but the best few is an aristocracy, as he defined it. The people who hold and wield power want those who don't to think it is a legitimate process, or that they achieve power through a legitimate process, but often they don't. For example, when President Biden notified the people of his decision to withdraw from the presidential race, he did it by way of a letter on his own social media account, which is written and posted by others, of course. It was written on his personal stationery instead of presidential stationery, and it carried no presidential seal. Most importantly, it was not his signature because it did not match any of his many previously signed letters or orders. We are not supposed to notice these things, and there is to be no investigation into who wrote the letter, who signed the letter. Did the letter reflect the president's decision, or did others make that decision for him? It was made by others, obviously. None of them are president. Many or all of them are unelected people. Who is running this country? Who is making the decisions about who runs it? Joe Biden received many primary votes from members of his party who are now expected to have their decision wiped away in favor of someone who has never received a single primary delegate. Rumor has it that the elite of the Democrat Party, primarily Nancy Pelosi, the Clintons, the Obamas, went to the president and said, Joe, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can let us resign you from the race, and you can continue your term, or we will remove you through the 25th Amendment, a palace coup, in other words, but one which only started when the interests of the ruling deep state were noticeably affected. The ones who exercised power were not granted that power by the people, but somehow they have it. They have known for years that Biden is and has been unable to perform his duties as president, but they chose not to mention that because they were in charge. They were the ones in charge, not him. They decided he could not beat Trump, so they set him up for a debate long before the convention so the world would notice his condition, but there would be time to replace him before the convention. Notice that the voters have nothing to do with this process because it's totally orchestrated by power brokers who endeavor to remain unseen as much as possible, I suppose, to keep up the democracy appearance. I wonder how the process of replacing Biden with Harris is any different from when the KGB decided it was time for a new leader more acceptable to them. I read that when Khrushchev was getting old, a little infirm, and the KGB decided that Brezhnev, who was one of them, would be more suitable. They made the change in a similar but less public way. Mr. Khrushchev had a state visit somewhere, and when he returned to Moscow, someone appeared in his office with a letter, put it in front of him, and said, "Sign this." He was never seen in public again. In China, everyone knows that they live in a state completely owned and operated by the Chinese Communist Party. The interests of the Chinese people are not important or even considered unless their interests somehow align with those of the party and will strengthen and expand its power. How is that process different from what we are seeing with the Democrat Party today? Even the Republican Party has its chosen ones as well. This is all very important, especially in terms of foreign and domestic policy as it is made today. Who makes policy today? Who commits the United States to having 700 military bases around the world with a defense budget 8 times bigger than Russia, 3 times bigger than China? Why can't we have a leader who defends the Constitution by ending perpetual war, ending the massive intrusion of government into our private lives, changing to an agenda of national prosperity? Why can't we have that? The reason is that it would not expand and solidify the power of the deep state and those who maintain and profit from it. That's all background into our political system to help explain what is happening now with the Democrat non-choice for president, as well as the attempt to eliminate the competition by assassination. I have mentioned many times before the 3 ways to get rid of a pesky politician who just won't follow the script. First, you offer him or her money. If he already has enough money, like Trump, like Kennedy, you can find something of value to serve as money, such as some plum job in government, like when Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State. The second method is scandal, which is easy to generate because the FBI has dossiers literally on everyone. When I was a candidate for president in 2016, I talked to an FBI agent once who sent a little chill up my spine when he told me a little bit about what the FBI knew about me. Sex is the most obvious scandal, with video tapes of little boys or little girls or some other Jeffrey Epstein type thing in the background of evil people. When I say evil, I mean that only the evil get to a position to be considered for membership. If you are not truly evil, they don't worry about you because they know you're not wicked enough to do what it takes to challenge them. They all have skeletons, and even if they don't, skeletons are easily invented. People have no conscience at all, and they conclude that power is literally everything, and that to achieve or maintain power, they must please their global masters. Then skeletons will be found, and the law is no barrier. The law, which is supposed to be a barrier between the people and the government, becomes a weapon in the hands of the government. They will find corrupt prosecutors to bring false charges. They will use corrupt juries and judges to get false criminal indictments and convictions. They will raid your home, plant evidence, give you perjured testimony about what was found in the search. They will send hundreds to jail on false charges, usually without trial or due process, then blame you for the false charges. They will look through your past for a disgruntled person in order to turn a non-crime into a felony. Sometimes the offer of money or something else of value is rejected. The scandals do not stick. There are those who just seem to feed off scandal, who use it to get stronger. That effect usually means that the public, the people, have become wise to the game and see the one being pursued as a hero. He becomes a persecuted martyr, and people admire his courage and unwillingness to cave in. They know the ones creating the scandals are many times worse than the one they persecute. When money and scandal don't work, the only thing left is the final solution, which has been used many times and can be pointed out to the one who just won't listen. The Kennedys, Martin Luther King, even Ronald Reagan found out the hard way that the third way is the hardest way, but it usually works. Even when not totally successful, as in Reagan's case, it works if the target loses his hold on power, as Reagan did. In the case of Donald Trump, the assassin was not successful in killing him, but perhaps he was successful in one sense in neutering the opponent of the deep state. If you don't like the name deep state, choose your own name. But we're talking about the invisible, unelected people who are the puppet masters and who do not take no for an answer. For example, the Secret Service has been trying to tell Donald Trump to stop holding large outdoor rallies. It's just too hard, they say, to protect him from assassins outdoors, and unfortunately the deep state seems to be succeeding. We are told now that the Trump team is looking for large indoor arenas like basketball arenas. So let me get this straight, Mrs. Cheatle. Let me get this straight now. Unless Trump stops being Trump, stops doing the things that attract voters in the first place, you can't promise him the safety of history's greatest empire. The other thing is that Trump was obviously affected by the assassin's bullet so that it changed his demeanor. Was it the bullet or someone in his ear that changed him into a unity candidate? I hear now he's looking at the head of one of Wall Street banks as possible Secretary of the Treasury. That would be a big mistake. It's the equivalent of letting the fox guard the hen house. If you want to kill the deep state, that is the basis of his popularity, then you don't unify with it. You terminate it. The lone nut, Patsy, who supposedly fired a bullet that almost killed Trump, did not kill him, but he did manage to bring down the director of the Secret Service. Yes, Kimberly Cheatle fell on her sword the other day instead of answering a few basic questions. The questions were designed to trap the director into admitting that she and the service were negligent. Democrats and Republicans went after her with the same questions. She danced around the questions very well, supported her unknown bosses by not answering and instead resigning. None of the House members who questioned her were looking for the right answer to the right question of who did this, Ms. Cheatle, who did it? Did the service refuse Trump's requested resources? Did the people they assigned to him have enough of the right stuff to do the job? The answer to those questions is no, he didn't get the resources, and no, they weren't up to the job. But the right questions were not asked and certainly not answered. Did you account for every bullet that was fired? Did ballistics match those bullets to the lone nut / Patsy's rifle? How many spent brass cartridges did you recover from where? From what calibers? How do you account for the forensic evidence of a second shooter? How can one person fire from two places at once? Ms. Cheatle, is the service making any investigative effort to determine if the audio evidence indicates a plot to kill Trump? Removing the director of the service makes everyone in Congress happy. They got their scalp, and now it's hanging from their belt so they can feel good. But the second shooter, if one exists, as evidence seems to indicate, the second shooter is still at large. The deep state can rest easy until it has a chance to try again. Maybe Trump has been neutered by his millimeter from death experience. A bullet passing close to one's head has an effect that is perhaps hard to measure and varies from person to person. Finally, folks, I close this Castle report with a quote from the great Paul Craig Roberts. Quote, Cheatle is correct that the Secret Service failed. It failed to assassinate Trump, end quote. At least that's the way I see it. Till next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.